an artist. Now what?
Have you ever been to a movie theater and seen those movie posters with the amazing art? Wouldn't that be an amazing job? What would it be like to create art for a movie like Avengers, for Star Wars, for Harry Potter? Well, my guest today has done that and more. His name is Paul Shipper, world-renowned movie poster artist. Just for context, let me tell you the type of movie posters he worked on. Monty Python, Jaws, Mad Max, Lethal Weapon, Godzilla, The Hobbit, Pacific Rim, Big Hero 6, The Walking Dead, Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Trek Into Darkness, Creating movie posters is such a cool job, and maybe it's a job that you want to have as well. We're going to learn a lot in this podcast today. Here is my talk with my good friend, Paul Shipper.
On fire.
There it is, fire. That's fantastic, my friend.
Well, if you ever need voiceover, and you don't know who to ask.
Subscribe now to the Box Office Artist. On fire.
Please do.
I have to send you my invoice in the mail.
Okay, why don't we just get into talking, because I'm excited to talk to you, Paul.
Okay.
Been a fan for a long time. So, well, why don't we start off? Why don't you let me know what are you currently working on, if you're allowed to say?
It's actually we're about to talk about ET at some point, but really? I'm actually working on another ET project. Funnily enough, it's kind of bizarrely kind of timing. Wow. But yeah, I can't tell you much more than that. But yeah, I'm yeah. So that's really good. What other things? Some stuff for upcoming TV show. Some movie work. Just kind of. I've just done a poster for the Foo Fighters upcoming movie that's just been announced. Wow. Which was really cool. It's just kind of from last year it was very quiet, if I'm honest with you, with everything that happened for everybody. And so I wasn't even sure if I would get much work again, but it's starting to trickle in again, which is great. So I'm doing all right, thankfully.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we go into your career highlights then? Because you have a lot. Why don't you tell us all the great projects that you've worked on, that you're the most proud of? How about that?
Oh well, there's been a number. I feel really fortunate, James, because growing up, being a fan of movie posters, and then being just basically not really knowing how to break into it. There is no right or wrong way, and so all you can do is just believe in yourself, and so that's all I did really. And I've been, over the years, I started off doing DVD covers for the most part. I did a movie poster for someone, a very low budget movie, and then just slowly, I did other work as well in the meantime, but when opportunity comes knocking, I guess they say, you have to be ready for it. And I was pretty prepared, I think, by that point. So, I got to work on some things I used to dream about, like a Spielberg movie, and Star Wars. It's like, just, yeah, you pinch yourself often. I have some on the wall here to remind me, because you easily kind of like, did that really happen or did it not? So you kind of, yeah. And so it's more personal goals than anything, like, growing up and hoping, or maybe I used to dream about, working on a project like Star Wars or a Steven Spielberg project. And then when it actually happens, it's like, wow, it's a cliche, but dreams do come true, kind of that kind of feeling. And so, I don't really want to reel off like a load of hit lists or anything like that, but I feel really blessed that I've been able to work on projects like that I have. And I guess if anyone wants to know, just, do a quick Google search or go on my website and have a quick look. But, I just, well, you know what it's like. You've had a bit of success, and it's like, it's nice, but and to be able to do something you enjoy, like we were just talking before briefly about, and being able to pay the bills is, it's one of the ultimate things. So
Absolutely.
I guess I can't really say much more than that about that, but if you want to elaborate on anything, let me know. But
For sure. Let's go. Well, then why don't we start at the beginning? Were you always an artist when you were a kid? You always like to draw?
yeah. I've still got some old sketchbooks from when I was like 8 years old, and drawing things off the TV, or after watching films or whatever. So I've always been inspired by a lot of TV and movies and entertainment with drawing, and but yeah, I've always been drawing. I mean, it's just something that's just been a natural progression, really, for me. Until finding out that it was movie posters that got me the most excited when I'd see a movie poster. And you sort of, when you're a kid, I question myself, like, why do I like this so much, or what is it about it that I like, that's kind of ticking the boxes. And then over time, you start to see similarities in some of the artwork, and that actually somebody was behind that artwork, and because when you're younger, you just think it just appears like out of magic. But when you actually find out that some people or a person or whatever was behind something, and you wonder how that came to be, and then you realize what a job is, and that somebody's job must be to do something like this. And so I mean, this, you're talking like mid 80s, 1990s period of time. There was no internet to kind of quickly search anything. It was all like guesswork, or magazines and books, and just occasionally stumbling on things, finding out that there were such things as movie fairs, and you could go and you could see more than you would see at the cinema, in the lobby. You'd get to actually look through posters and things like that. So it was just a natural progression, really, for me. And when it was obvious that it was somebody was behind something, I was like, well, something about this is making me study it in a way. So I just naturally was compelled, and just fell into it that way, I guess.
Right. So how old were you when you kind of realized the movie posters was something that you kind of would like to do?
It was probably toward the late 80s, around
Were you like
around
high school?
1987. Pardon?
Were you like in high school at that time, or?
Let's see. I would have been about 12 years old.
Oh, okay. Even yeah, way sooner than that. Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah.
Yeah, it was. I think the first movie poster, and I think I've told this story before, but it was in a video shop, which you call video rentals place, like Blockbuster or something, and they had posters up, and there was one for Adventures in Babysitting that caught my eye, and I just asked them. I asked them like, what do you do with them when you finished with the? And they're like, oh, we just throw them away or whatever. But they wrote my name down and gave it to me at the end. After a few weeks or whatever.
That's great.
Yeah, so that was like one of my earliest like movie posters that I remember actually getting hold of, and I'd look at it, and it was a pretty bad copy. It was quite blurry, in fact, and it was Drew Struzan's artwork for the movie.
Right.
But it was one of those ones that was just something about it. It's like, people walking up the side of a building, and I liked the movie. I enjoyed the movie, and it was just like you know, a friend of mine and who's an illustrator as well, James Goodridge. We talk about Drew's work, and we were talking about it not so long ago, and we both kind of came to the conclusion that a lot of Drew's work is like a miracle. And it's like, how does that come from somebody? You know, because it's almost like there's something you cannot describe, and it's like, and so it's that undescribable part that captured me. And so I've just been trying to, you know, find out what that is, I guess, and I still haven't found it.
Well, to some of you have already, for sure, especially to me, for sure. So you, like at that age then, were you already starting to paint? Were you trying to use like traditional media to?
Oh yeah, no. It's, when I was at school, I started studying Drew's work by this point, and then trying to work out how he was creating these things. At first, you think it's a photograph, and then you're like, no, it's not a photograph. And then, so, you know, because I would draw a lot anyway, so I would see like patterns and things happening. So I would, you know, say for example the gesso, which is as we know what that is, but at the time I didn't know what that was. So I thought every line of the paintbrush stroke on the gesso was rendered by hand. I that's my when I first saw it, it's like, you know, they're all going away and it's all for a purpose. And it was like, because I couldn't picture what that was, because I didn't paint much. It was all drawings. It was drawing most of the time for me as a child. I didn't really have access to many paints until I got to like school, sort of toward the end of school and art college. And you start playing with paints and stuff like that. But most of my work had been like chalks and pencil crayons and that kind of thing. So I was trying to simulate what Drew was doing with the gesso, which takes seconds. And I'd be like drawing every, like trying to, thinking that that's what it was, but it's like, no, it was not that. So, you know, it's just, and it's just been a gradual kind of, you know, I've been enlightened the whole way, you know, like, oh, you know, or stumbling on something, like figuring it out, like, oh, you know, that's how I can do that. That's how I can achieve that. Or I'll be playing with you know, I used to paint a lot traditionally, these days more digital, but when playing with the traditional paints and airbrush, I got an airbrush and I dabble in that and figure out how to use it. And, you know, there were no tutorials. Even my art teacher, they didn't teach me about an airbrush. It was all kind of self-taught stuff, you know? But yeah, it was just a gradual progression of, you know, finding stuff out gradually and just organically, really, just based on being interested in something. So,
no, that's great.
I would say so,
for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, massive. I mean, along with a few other of, you know, his contemporaries and earlier now, because as I started studying Drew's work, I would see similarities in other work, and even down to Norman Rockwell and JC Leyndecker, because Drew would be asked in his early career to paint like Norman Rockwell or paint like Leyndecker, and so he would take that and do it to whatever they wanted. And so when I didn't know who they were until I started studying, but once you find out who they are and you can see this natural progression, that was really an interesting thing for me, especially when you find out that Norman Rockwell basically used to follow JC Leyndecker around like a fanboy. So, you know, and I'm like, I'm doing the same thing to Drew. Like the first time I met Drew, I found his fax number in a book. And so I plucked up the courage to message him, or not message him, fax him. So I wrote this letter out and just said, you know, how do I be what you are? You know, what do I do? And you know, he replied, he sent a letter back straight away, and it was very, you know, it was a bit downheartening really, because at this point in his career, the computers were coming along, and he was seeing a lot of people's work dry up, including his own. And so he was a little bit like, I guess, down about that. And so when I saw what his reaction was, it kind of made me feel, oh, maybe this is the end of this illustrated movie poster thing. And I just, I was just born too late. Or whatever. But something, he also, in his letter to me, I mean, he said, he quoted scripture, which was something that always interested me. I wasn't necessarily religious at the time or into any kind of religion, but it kind of spoke to me when he wrote, don't give up, basically. He wrote, if you keep knocking, the door will open to you. And which is, it's in the Bible, and it's like it's a strong thing, and it stayed with me for a long time. Well, still does. Like, it's like, if you believe in it, just, don't stop trying to make it work. Just keep going. And so that's been my mantra, really, is just, if someone, like, I mean, there's always obstacles thrown in your way. And my mom was always very supportive, and my dad was also supportive of what I was doing, but he never really got it when I was a kid. He was like, he was like worried that I'd follow this dream and then be disappointed, I guess. Or, he was just looking out for me. Like, always have something to fall back on. But the thing I found is, if you have something to fall back on, you don't give it your all. And I've given this advice to a few people, including like Matt Ferguson, who you might have heard of. He's gone on to do really great things. And he had a job at a music company, like HMV, it was called.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And, he was doing this thing on the sides, on the side, kind of for fun. And so, and I remember saying to him, and this is basically where it comes from, is like, you, in order to kind of really shine, you have to actually be so hungry, you have to just drop everything, or get yourself to a point where you can actually focus fully on what you want to achieve and then go for it. And having a full-time job and trying to do that, it's very rare that you'll have a lot of success unless you drop that other thing that's kind of taking a lot of your time up. And so he got to a point where I think he made that decision, and he quit his job and then went full and never looked back. And that's what happens generally, especially if you feel like it's in your heart and it's in your gut. Something's telling you that you should be doing this. When you feel like that, you have to get yourself in position and ready to just follow that and not let go. But you have to be super honest with yourself. Like, if there's even I think if there's a shadow of a doubt, then you need to just rethink for a bit and then come back to it. But you need to be full on board. Just go for it. Don't let anything stop you. And don't look back. But that's what I took from what my dad was sort of saying, really. But he when I was a kid, he'd be like, I see what you're doing, it's really good. And I was doing like Indiana Jones drawings in my bedroom, and things like that, and Star Wars. And he said, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg are never going to call you. You know that, don't you? He's like, and I'm like, yeah, well, you never know. I mean, I've still never had a call directly from them, but I've got to work on some of the projects that are related to them.
Close enough.
So it's pretty close, but he was right. He's right so far, right. As much as they haven't personally called me yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Still time.
Not yet. No. So
that's amazing and very, very inspirational advice. We really appreciate that, for sure. Yeah. So I always loved the story when you first went to Drew's Drew's place. Could you tell that story for everybody? Your first time going to Drew's place?
Yeah, sure. Well, I just graduated from university. I was 21. Me and a friend who graduated from graphic design, we were like, what should we do? And we both loved America, and we thought we'd do a trip over to America. And there was a company called Trek America. So we booked the holiday, and my uncle actually used to work for them. So we got a discount because we were students, really. We had no money. And so we saved up over the summer to pay for it. And it was a 4 or 5 week trip. And it's 4 weeks around the West Coast and a week in New York. We were going to visit a friend. Anyway, we arrived in LA, and we had one spare day. We got there and we had a spare day before the trek or the camping trip started. And so I knew this beforehand, and I'd been in touch with Drew because I'd already asked him about some advice. And then I told him, we just graduated from university and we're going to be in LA for a day. And, we just wondered if he was available just on a whim, really, because it's not like I went to LA every day. This is like my mom and dad took me when I was 5. That was the only real trip there that I've ever been on. So anyway, Drew wrote back, and he was really nice and said to give him a call once I landed in LA and see if he was available. So the first thing I did when I got to the hotel, it was the Hacienda Hotel. I don't know if you know that one. What's that road? Anyway, it was, I got on the phone, pay phone. There was no mobile. We didn't have a mobile phone. So this is like the late 90s. Right. And he answered the phone, and I was like, it's so weird when you hear someone, because I've never seen it. You'd never seen an interview with him. You never hear him talk.
Right. Yeah.
I knew what he looked like by this point because I'd seen pictures. And so yeah, hearing from him for the first time on the phone was amazing. Anyway, he was really nice, and he's like, so how do you, tomorrow he is free, and how are you getting there? Have you got a car? I'm like, no, we don't have a car. So I had to figure out a way of getting there. Anyway, this is a long story. I'm kind of making it a long story than it needs to be. But it was just because getting there was more difficult than I thought. When you don't have a car. Yeah. So I found a taxi service that was a airport taxi. It dropped like 100 people on the way. Anyway, we finally got there after a long journey, and the taxi guy was like, give me a call when you're done. I'll pick you up. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant, great, thank you. So go knock on the door. Very nervous. Me and my friend Rick's with me, and we didn't really know what to expect. Anyway, we went through, spent pretty much the whole afternoon in his studio, and just hung out and talked. And I had my portfolio with me because I actually did it's quite embarrassing. I actually did a painting of a portrait of Drew to give to Drew. And on reflection, it's like the most stupid thing to do. But I don't know. I just felt like I needed to give him something, and I didn't know what to do. So it felt like the right thing at the time, but on reflection, it wasn't a great idea. But he was very nice and accepted it. And he looked through my work, and he was very complimentary. And as I was just 21, he asked how old I was, and he'd looked through and he complimented my work, and he said he could tell I'd had a good teacher. And what he meant by that was he could tell where a lot of the influence had come from. Right. So in some ways, I suppose Drew was a teacher of mine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you think about it, but he was so nice, and he said to me that he thought that he was just making me feel good, I think. But he said, like, at my age, he thought that I was more advanced than he was at that age, or something like that. And he was just it's just a nice thing for him to say to someone who, was just kind of starting out in the world after university at art college, and just kind of, it was a very uplifting thing for me to come from someone whose work I'd admired and loved so much, and whose company we were actually in. And so, yeah, it's a day I'll never forget. It was just the most wonderful day. I don't know. I'm probably missing some details that you want me to talk about, but
No, that's fine.
it was just, like a dream come true, really. Like
Sure,
we were talking about dreams coming true. There's another one. but yeah, so Drew and I have kept in touch a little bit over the years, and it's been very nice to be able to have that little bit of communication, even if it's just around the holiday time and Christmas time.
Right.
But
Was there
yeah.
was there any piece of advice that Drew gave you that kind of really stuck with you?
On the day, I mean, it was I wouldn't say specifically any advice, but it was just more, he was very humble, spending the time. I mean, he was working on a project, it was on his drawing board. It was a picture for the Lost World.
Oh wow.
I have a picture here of me and Drew together.
Oh really? Oh, yeah. I'd love to see it.
So I don't know if it'll come out on there, but so that's
Oh no, there you go. Oh yeah. Oh look at that.
yeah.
Very
So
nice.
that's the drawing board behind him. He's got the Lost World artwork on there, and he's right in the middle of that.
Right.
And I remember actually saying something, because it was in a different state as what the final piece came out like. And I remember saying, "Oh, I think it would make more sense to do that." And then I'm sure he took my advice on something, because when I saw the final, I'm like, "Yeah, he did what I said." Something like that. But yeah, it was pretty good.
That's great.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's an awesome story for sure. Yeah.
Some people say don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a hero
But
you want to
I'm
meet
glad I
then, it
did.
sounds like, for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad I did.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
a great guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. So, with that, so we mentioned teacher. Then, can you tell me where did your actual art college help you? Then you think with the stuff you or with your career, or what would you say about college in general?
Well, college in England, which is where I come from, we have after our high school finishes, generally we do college, and then once we've done college, we go into university. That's the way it's always gone. Now, art college was I always have fond memories of art college, because everybody's sort of finding themselves, I think, but I already knew kind of what I wanted to do. So I was kind of stuck in my ways in a way, because I was on a definite course of where I wanted to be. But still, you're just experimenting and trying things and learning stuff. And art college was more of a fun kind of experimental time. I remember being more, and the people that were, I've got friends, that I know now from art college. I don't really hang out or know many people from my university time, which was 3 years, whereas art college was 2 years.
Right.
So, I think art college was more beneficial in some ways than university. University, I thought it would prepare you for, the real world of work if this is a job,
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure there are some courses these days that do that, where they will, and anyone who's listening who wants to go through university and learn more about illustration, and I would suggest to learn about as much as you can about. The thing is, with creative things, there's not a lot people can really teach you. I don't think there's, I mean, you can life drawing was one of the greatest classes ever,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
but it was more about your own journey. It was, and you'd have like a helping hand if you needed it. Like maybe try this, or this is how you measure with, use your thumb and use the pencil to measure things and get things correct. That kind of stuff was really helpful. But when it came to university, for me, it was more we'd get given briefs to do, which was good. That was kind of part of the real world part, which was good. We'd get a brief like a client would give to people to accomplish something. So then you go and research, you go and do your thing, you come back with ideas. That side of it was good. But I think more to do with, because the creative side is like that should come natural in most cases. Right. The other stuff you don't know, the stuff that you wish you knew once you got there, like yes. Billing and quoting and
right, yeah.
paying taxes and stuff that you hate to talk about. Like I don't even want to mention it to anyone really, but it's like it's depressing stuff. It's the side I don't like.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And it's the side that many people don't want to talk about. And I feel like I don't really want to talk about it because it's like I just kind of wish it didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. We just want to paint, right? We want to do the art.
Yeah, just the creative part, please. Yeah. And then just drop the money over there and that's fine. And then I can just keep paying bills and forget about that. And,
yeah, exactly.
Get on with the fun part. But yeah, it is very much like, I mean, when you get into a position where you can, where you're being paid to do work for clients, it's great. I mean, you have to also, so we're kind of moving away from university now, but university was helpful to a point. But if there's budding illustrators out there who are thinking, what do I need to do to, you don't need to go to university to do that. You don't need to. If you have a clear idea, and people are doing it today. People are doing it. You've got the social media is like they become. I mean, you if you want to stand out now, it's harder and harder every day.
Yeah.
But there's so many people want to do this. It's like
absolutely.
When I was looking into it, nobody cared. It's like nobody knew about it or something. Right. Now it's like everybody. It's like anyone who's got a tablet or anything to create something with, like, or even paper and paint, whatever it is, there is a chance I don't know what it might be, but you got more of a chance now, even though there's more competition. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
Crazy time we're living in for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I bet what they don't know, a lot of these people, is what it's actually like to work with clients. How would it work when, just say, Disney or whoever would approach you with a project? What are the steps that are involved whenever you're trying to put out a poster type thing?
Well, every project and every client is different ways of working, so you have to be able to kind of adapt to their needs as much as they need to know how you work. So there isn't really a fixed way, but predominantly it's the way you'd expect it to go, I would say, where, a client sees something that you have done, they like your style, they might see that you've done something similar before, which always seems to be the case. Like a lot of the times, a little tip for anyone who has an online portfolio is make sure on your portfolio, you put things on that you enjoy doing and that you do well. So don't go putting everything in the kitchen sink on there, because when art directors or art buyers look at your portfolio, they won't know what to do with you. Right. You have to have a kind of just stick with what you love the most, and that will help. But basically, an art buyer or art director or creative director, whoever it is who sees your work, will hopefully have an easy way of reaching out to you. So, you get an email or sometimes a phone call, and are you interested in working on this? And, it starts from there. And then you're like, yeah, this, let's say it's an interesting project. Yeah, this looks of interest. Let's see if the deadline fits with the workload that I currently have on. If I'm not busy, we're fine. If I've got lots on, then you might have to wait, or, or we need it now. And, can you fit this in? That kind of thing can happen.
Mhm.
And so it's a case of, every time there's different parameters that, and then working creatively with those people is a really fun part of the process. Sometimes they have a definite idea what they want. Sometimes they don't know what they want. And so you just have to be prepared to kind of, for whatever it is, whether it's like, sometimes it's like, we have no clue, we need you to start on this from scratch. Sometimes it's like, we have this already kind of laid out, and it's been approved by everybody, and we just want you to paint it, like, and that's all we need, and then we need it by tomorrow. And it's like, oh, okay. So then you pull like a 20-hour shift
Right.
to make it happen. But it can be every time it's very different. It's rare that it's the same every time, which is nice,
Yeah. So how important is it to be able to take criticism well in your line of work?
Oh yeah, I think you really, you can't take it too personally. Everybody, you know what it's like. Everybody's working on, everyone's on the same team, so you're all trying to get to this same place of whatever it feels right for the project. And that's part of the fun, is trying to find that thing. And sometimes it's really set in stone and you cannot deviate. Other times it's kind of a bit more fluid and a bit more, there's a bit more give and take, a bit more like you could explore a little bit more and come up with something. But that doesn't happen very often these days, unless it's a lower budget project, when they're more willing to give you more flexibility with where it's going, because they can't dictate, I guess, as much. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're aiming to please the client, which hopefully will in turn please the public, who will see it and hopefully love it.
Right, for sure, yeah. Because
nobody wants to make something that everyone's gonna go, that's hideous.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's supposed to be something that everyone's gonna look and go, whoa, now that is it. That is what we are talking about, that kind of thing. There are jobs you do that are very, they're very back and forth, like and you just, that's part of the job.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to complain about that.
Right.
With the creative process, there has to be a little bit of give and take. You do, trying to see an image in someone else's head, and there's no chance. There's no chance you can do that.
Oh, that did something.
So you just do your best. And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And so you have to be able to find a middle ground sometimes with projects. And and sometimes it just, for everything you try, just doesn't work. Like one of those was Mary Poppins Returns, as an example. That, I think most people might know that I worked on a poster for that movie, and then it turned out that they wanted to go back to a simplified version of what I was doing. And which, it was there was a lot of work in that kind of, it didn't come to fruition. But it was a wonderful, working on that project was brilliant. I grew up loving Mary Poppins, so I wanted to make it practically perfect in every way, It was like that. It was like, I just want this to be so Mary Poppins. So, there are many projects that have many different endings. Sometimes there's work that I've done that nobody might ever see,
Right.
but and it's sometimes the process just doesn't work out, or time, or they decide to go a different route. It could just happen.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is, like you've worked on like like everyone's dream post. Like you've worked on Avengers, you've worked on Star Wars. I know that don't the actors they have to sign off on their likenesses when it comes to these movie posters, right?
Yeah. They most of the big actors, especially, I think, have approvals that they have to be happy with how they're portrayed. That's I love doing portraits. So like, you love portraits.
Yes, yes.
So getting a portrait right is kind of key. So when you get some feedback, it's usually quite minimal, or they've decided to have a different angle or something. It's all aesthetics. Like, you want to make people look the best they can look.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, and the poster or whatever the artwork is could be around for a long time. And so you want it to be resembling that person, not just their face, but almost like their mind, body, and soul. So a lot of the times when you're doing a portrait, and you probably agree with me, maybe not, I don't know, but it sometimes helps when you know how that actor speaks or talks or moves, because you've seen them before. So when you're working on that person, you can you feel them. Or when you if I'm working on a project where I've never seen an actor before, or it's a little bit of a cold feeling because you don't know their mannerisms so much, so it's a little bit different. And that might just be for us doing the portraits that feel that. But that's something I noticed when you're working on the projects, is that sometimes you're like, yeah, I really got the look right there. That smirk is perfect for them. And then the other people you might work on who you don't know so well, you're like, well, I hope that kind of resembles them.
That's true. If I'm not mistaken, because like I've never worked on an actual official poster like you have, right? Do they also give you like percentages? Like this character has to be like this big on the posters, like stuff like that, or
sometimes sometimes there are specifics, but I remember, because I remember when Drew or whoever said that once, and and so I always kind of kept that in mind. And some of the projects are like that, but sometimes when the design's already kind of laid out for you, you don't have to worry about it because they've already taken care of that. But the other times, then it'll be like, just make this person this percentage smaller, make this person this percentage bigger. There's been projects like I was working on a DVD cover for Misery. In the particular brief that I had, we weren't allowed to show any of the actors' likenesses at all.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes, and that's happened a couple of times with some of the merchandise projects, like I did the T-shirt for Predator. So I was working on this idea of Arnie and the Predator, and it was all like, and I'd sent it in, and the guy was like, oh no, we can't show Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, what?
Right.
Why? How can you not do that?
Right.
So you just left with the Predator, which is fine.
Right.
Very cool, character. But I was kind of disappointed not to have Arnie looking badass, because the layout was really cool. But so you have to kind of make those kind of choices. And the Misery one, I went down a completely different route. It was kind of like quite abstract for me, which was like a typewriter with a foot and the hammer.
Right.
If you're familiar with the movie, you'll kind of know what that is. But without any likenesses. So that was kind of interesting. But that's down to the contract that goes with the movie, and it lives with the movie for years. Like, so if an actor said, no, you're not allowed to put my likeness with any future things, then that's the way it is.
Oh, I see.
yeah, it's whatever. I don't know all the ins and outs, but
Yeah. That's part of the
kind
business.
of like,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So now that your regular work's really starting coming in for you, what's a typical day like for you today?
These days, well, I have a number of projects which I'm happy to be juggling at the moment, which is always good. And then there are other ones then currently in where we are, talking, doing the business side behind the scenes, paperwork, filling things out, trying to update my store at the moment.
How do you
It's
balance all
kind of
that
like,
stuff? How do you
I
balance?
didn't.
How do you balance all that stuff? That's a lot of stuff.
I don't know. I think some people have staff, but it doesn't really happen that here. But you kind of just like juggle everything. My partner Kelly, she has helped me out quite a bit over the years as well. And so we just kind of just try and do as best a job as we can. She's studying to do a PhD. She's doing a PhD in Egyptology.
Oh, yeah.
So she's very busy with that, as well as doing other things on the side for her as well. So we're kind of just doing our best, and that's all you can do. And but yeah, a regular day, get up in the morning, need a coffee, check your emails, see what the latest news is going on, head to the studio, turn everything on, and just try and get to it. And if there are ever those moments of like artist block, you just kind of try and, I've got a keyboard, I got a drum kit here, I kind of take breaks, and I'm constantly in and out of the studio to make more coffee or have lunch or whatever it is. But mostly, we don't go out much. We're kind of hermits, really. Kind of like everyone else around the world is just kind of catching up to what we've always been.
Right.
It's
true.
Yeah. But yeah, we're lucky. We moved into a new house just before the pandemic happened, and we had more space, and I got a new studio, which I've, it's at a point where I'm really loving it. I've got everything kind of at my fingertips that I really need.
Is it in your house, your studio? Is it in your place, or is it?
It's actually outside the house. It's an outbuilding or garage.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So it's kind of, but it's I don't know if I can show you around.
Oh, sure, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Yeah.
Let's see if I can. This might not work.
Okay, well, we can give it a try. Why not?
But we'll try it. Might not. Chances are it's not going to work.
Oh, that's okay. We'll give it a shot. Doesn't work, no problem.
Hang on a minute. Let's see.
So do you try to keep your work during the day then? You don't do like all-nighters anymore?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, a lot of the times, yeah, I will be working like late, especially the time zone in America. So sometimes if you need to speak to somebody or whatever, so I'm generally more of a night person anyway. But I get up early as well, so I don't do myself any favors really.
That's true.
But I don't know if this is gonna work.
Okay. Well, that's okay. That's okay if not.
But it might.
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
It might. I'd still love to see it. Okay. Oh, wow. There we go. Here we go. Got a focus on there.
I got a remote camera, so you're over here.
Nice. Hey, that's me.
So this is the studio.
Wow.
And over here we have a few projects I've created artwork for.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Form books and Empire magazines, and some toys as well. A few hats.
Oh, nice. That's a big hat collection you got there.
This is what you wear when you go and visit the Walt Disney.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is like print files. stuff that we sell on the shop that we have.
Right on.
There's the drum kit.
Oh, sweet.
We'll look over there.
Very cool. Very cool. I'd love to visit there one day in person. one of these days.
Got a few things up here.
Oh, look at that.
You like a bit of Grogu.
Oh, nice.
He's not talking. He usually talks by now.
Oh, yes. Hi, Grogu.
He visited you
Oh,
once.
yeah. This is a brush.
Oh, the chair brush? Right on.
Over here. I stole this idea off Drew.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, airbrush is here.
Wow.
Everything you need, really.
Right on.
Even a Knight Rider thing.
Right on.
Got my Indiana Jones gear in case I go out on an adventure.
Right. You need that for sure. Every day.
Yeah.
That's
There we go.
awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for that. That's great. Yeah. So do you still do a lot of traditional stuff then? Like you still have your airbrush there going, right?
Yeah. I'm actually one of the things about getting a new studio was I wanted to do more traditional work. So I haven't had much opportunity like lately, but the idea was to do more. And so I'm going to be doing some like original art for people, and then I'm going to be selling some sketches and stuff on my store.
Oh,
And
that's fantastic.
maybe taking some commissions and things like that.
Right.
So that's what I'd like to. One of the things I'd like to do next year in particular is focus on doing some more traditional paintings and drawings and things, and get back in the swing of it. I've been working on a project for as a private commission, which it's the first painting I'd done, I think, since 2012, real painting. So there's been quite a gap.
Right.
But I was really pleased with how it came out. So it kind of gave me the confidence to. I feel like I've improved, even though it's strange because I do a lot of digital work.
Right.
And so it's been a while since I had held the traditional tools. But I think it somehow, even though I was working digitally, my artwork's improved. So, even though you work digitally, you don't lose it.
Yeah,
is
same
what I'm
mode
trying
of
to-
thinking, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
you think you're still thinking the same lines.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I can't wait to see some of that stuff, some of your traditional stuff with it. But with that in mind, because you've pretty much, when it comes to poster art and even illustrational art in general, you've done it all. Like for me, from afar, like you've done everything. Like what excites you now? Like what do you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, movie posters have always been where it's at. The art of the movie poster is something that's inspired me and it still does. Like when you see it, when it's done right, you really know it's done right. So that's always been a mission, is to try and get as close to that as possible. But I've been very lucky, like we talked in the beginning, talking about my career, I guess, and I recently got to work with Empire magazine.
Yes.
And that's because I've been a reader since it started in 1989. So around the time of my kind of learning about movie posters, really. So that's been a great fun collaboration with them, to be able to work on their covers and some internal work for them, and they announced me as the visual contributing editor of the magazine now. It's like, it is hard to believe, but it's beautiful, really. And it's just really nice to be part of, I guess, a small part of movie history. And I don't know where it's going to go from here, James. I don't know. I mean,
Well, you're still having fun doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's
Yeah,
still
you're
fun.
still enjoying
You
it,
know,
right?
there are things that I'm sure. You know, I never thought I'd work on a Foo Fighters movie
Right.
poster, but that just happened.
Right, exactly.
You know, and there's like something coming up which I cannot talk about, but I didn't think that would happen. You know, things just like come along, and you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. You know, so right now I'm just kind of enjoying the unknown, and I don't know quite where it's going to take me. And there's projects from all aspects. So, and I'm just hearing people's ideas and deciding if it's something that interests me or if it's something that I can contribute to. And quite frankly, am I the right person for the job? You know, like, because sometimes, you know, projects come along and you're like, I don't think I'm the right person for this. I think this person might be better, or, you know, that happens.
For sure.
But you know, it's, yeah, the unknown. I don't know. It's exciting times, really. I mean,
Absolutely.
There's a lot of, I also want to just do try and do some personal stuff too at some point, you know, and try and sort of maybe I don't know yet, maybe something related to nature or animals, or, you know, I haven't really had a chance to delve into that yet, but
Right. Yeah. That'll be great to see, for sure. It's great to see some some originals. All Shepherd originals. So, you know, and you've been very generous with your time, and I really do appreciate that, Paul. So, maybe to help us finish off here, because, as you know, this podcast is for people who kind of don't know what they want to do with their creativity. So, for someone who wants to get into, like, you're a professional, right? Whether that be movie posters or illustration in general, what would your advice be to that person today?
well, I think a lot of it's to do with, you know, trusting your own instincts and following your own path. And there are, you just gotta be true to yourself. And you know, there's no right or wrong path. I don't think people get hung up on, like, what do I need to do? I was the same. Like, I wrote to Drew saying, how do I do what you do? You know, that's why I basically asked him, and he didn't tell me, because, and I understand, there is no set way of doing anything like this. You just have to wear your heart on your sleeve sometimes, you know, be true to who you are, you know, follow your instincts, and wherever that may lead you, there is no tried and true tested method of this. I didn't follow in Drew's exact footsteps to be able to work on similar things that Drew did. I just kind of put it out there and just, you know, don't stop telling people what you do. Right. You know, just keep telling them. And then if you know, it's not easy. I mean, like I said earlier, the competition has just, you know, it's the amount of people who are, because it feels so accessible, because it is, you know, it's about creating imagery, you know, based on pop culture. So pop culture is very popular. You know, that's what it is. It's like popular culture. So when something is so popular, it's going to get a lot of attention. And so when something gets a lot of attention, more people gravitate to it. And the more people gravitate to it, more people say, hey, I can do that. Hey, I can do that. And there's more and more people working from their bedrooms now, working from, you know, just they don't need to have, you know, a tablet, like an iPad. You know, that's all you need. Right. If you're, you know, I can't work solely on an iPad. I tried, and I love that. I do like the iPad, but I find it difficult to, maybe because I'm getting older, I don't know. Right. But some people do it, and they work solely on the iPad, and they create great imagery and great things. So whatever it is you do, I mean, I'm even interested in like as well as illustrating. I like I've recently found out I have a I might want to do some voice kind of work, because I can like but I'm not that confident yet, so don't ask me. But that kind of thing is like, wow, I could maybe do that. And so I'm in a similar situation in that respect to some of the people who might be watching this to say, oh, how do I do that? And the only way to do it is to start. The only way to do it is to make that first step. Like I haven't made that proper first step with that idea of mine, but that's what I would need to do. And then you just keep one foot after the next, and you don't know quite where it's going to take you, but it might take you to the heights that you expect it might do. And sometimes it might not, but if you're true to yourself, you can't really go far wrong, and that's what would be my greatest advice. And I think, just to hear that might help. I don't know.
No, it absolutely does, for sure. After everything you've experienced, okay, so far, let's go back to the college you before you went to go visit Drew.
Oh yeah.
What advice would you give to yourself at that point, after experiencing everything you have over the years?
What would I tell myself, like, back at college?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
I don't think I'd want to do that. maybe no, because I was thinking maybe skip university and just go straight for your, just if you know where you want to go, just skip university and just start now. But then I've had this conversation with Kelly. It's like, there are things, even though university didn't feel like it did much for me, it still did. It taught me certain things that I maybe take for granted.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think I don't know. It's like, like the time machine idea of like going back in time. And if you mess with it too much, you don't know what it's going to do. But
right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one, James.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because maybe we should leave it like it is, or else you wouldn't have got to where you are. Maybe that's the case, right? So,
yeah,
you're right. Don't want to mess with time.
No, don't mess with time travel.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah. Well, you've been amazing, and thank you so much for being with us today. So, for those of people watching, if they wanted to support you, how could they do that?
Well, you can follow me on social media at Paul Shipper, and I'm on Facebook / Paul Shipper Studio, and my website is paulshipper.com or paulshipperstudio.com, whichever one takes your fancy. And I'm just trying to. My website's a bit behind, so I'm about to be updating that. Okay. Just follow me wherever if you'll find me. If you're interested in my work, you'll find me. I'm not very good at this actually self-promotion thing.
Your work speaks for itself, my friend. No,
that's the idea, you see. Yes. That's the idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Until I get my voice acting down, then I'll be like, I'll be booming through the mic like you will.
Hey, that's pretty good. I like that. Can you give me like a good like movie trailer line here?
Oh, like the inner world thing. Inner world. Yeah, that kind of thing. We're one man. Make a difference. Yeah.
I think you went to the wrong business, my friend. Oh. That's what you should tell your 20-year-old self.
James Reyes. Yeah. Is on fire.
There it is, fire. That's fantastic, my friend.
Well, if you ever need voiceover, and you don't know who to ask,
well, you're hired already, my friend.
I did something once. Yeah, there's a podcast called the IndieCast, for the Indiana Jones fans, yes. And so I did a little voiceover for that, and it was like at the end of every show they put it on now, or they have done for years, and it was like, if adventure has a name, it must be the IndieCast, and that's me doing that from
really? That's awesome.
I don't know how long ago, 20 years ago, maybe.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah. Okay. How about to end us off? Can you say subscribe to the box office artist? Can you say that for me?
Subscribe now to the box office artist.
Please do.
You're gonna use that clip. I have to send you my invoice in the mail.
Yes, please. Yes, sir. I'll pay you in Ethereum. There we go.
Yeah, in crypto.
In crypto. There you go.
All right.
Thank you so much, Paul. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Pleasure, James. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Good to talk to you.